So as usual, this was not the first vid I was planning on doing tonight, but when I saw the title, Should Men Give Up Their Seats on Public Transport for Women? Battle of the Sexes breaks out over Londoners' divisive clip on their tube journey. And I'm thinking to myself, and somewhere it says at some point, and maybe it's in the video, and under fair use, let me just play you this. I mean, I do feel a lot of this is like underling occultist activists, you know. I mean, remember, they get them right when they're young. I mean, even when you look at Freemasonry, I mean, there is, in both sexes, well, that'll trigger somebody, but, you know, little, what was it, rainbow, whatever it is for, you know, one part of Freemasonry in their teens or something. Anyway, yep, look. I just get the feeling there's a lot of obligation going on about the continual divide and conquer, because, I mean, that's essentially what occultism is all about. And somewhere in amongst all this, you know, somebody said, when did chivalry die? And I mean, you could go at this from so many angles, but if you were to ask me, and believe me, I'm open to argument on that one. But for me, I think it was the 90s. You know why? Because all of a sudden on the radio, you know, you're out in your car, there's no excuse, domestic abuse, zero tolerance. And it was just, I mean, radio stations used to be about playing music, a few adverts, blah, 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 with various hosts. That was it, yeah? But then, oh, this is sponsored by the Scottish government, blah, blah, blah. And this constant ongoing victimization, because remember, we always have to assume that anything to do with domestic abuse, for example, is absolutely 100% the male, right? And you've got to ask yourself, when people started thinking twice about even communicating with each other because they thought, oh God, wait a minute here. I mean, it was repetition. And really, males were being demonized. I mean, up until the most confident times for men and women would be the 80s, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, as I said, you could go at this from many angles, but this came on. I had something else in the background. YouTube went on to next thing, blah, blah, blah. Simple Minds, You Go Dream. And obviously, I'd love to play some of that, but, you know, it is YouTube and copyright, but I'll leave you a link to it. And I'm thinking, it reminded me of a time where Scotland was really kicking ass. I mean, really. You think, I mean, it was a DJ friend of mine down south that actually said, when you look, especially roughly about the mid-80s, early 80s, until about latter aspects of the 80s, a lot of Scottish bands were doing really well. And even when you look at advertisements and banking systems, and I mean, places like Edinburgh was like minted. I mean, minted. Yeah. But then, I mean, it had like 30-odd thousand employees with, what was it, Scottish and Newcastle, was it? I mean, it was more industrialized and banking, and I mean, it was really seen as a powerhouse in Scotland in general. And even when you look at Glasgow, was rocking. Absolutely. Confidence? Oh, brimming over. Yeah. Until about, I would say about the late, well, possibly just into the early 90s, actually. That's when it really, yeah, things changed. Much more agency work, many more TV channels, cable this, satellite that, blah, blah, blah. And our whole way of life changed after that. So, yeah. You could go into more detail about this, absolutely, but just straight off the bat, yeah, how about, well, you don't have to look that far back when both sexes were far more confident. I mean, believe me, fuck me, Do you think women were shy and whatever in the 80s? I mean, they were confident, outgoing. There was something, quite, I would argue to this day, vastly sexy about smart. You know, the best sexual muscle, I would argue, first and foremost, is the brain. Most people knew that up until at least the late 80s, early 90s, and afterwards, I would argue, it went tits up. But I'll repeat, you could go into more detail, but yeah, am I on my own about this? Come on.